Hello everyone, it's Melinda Jennison here from Streamline Property Buyers, and this month I'm going to be reporting on everything you need to know about what's been happening here in the Brisbane property market based on our on-the-ground observations, but also based on the most recent data that's just been published from CoreLogic and PropTrack, as well as SQM Research. First of all, just looking at a market snapshot. When we're looking at listing volumes, according to SQM Research, between last month in the month of April and the month of May, we've seen an increase of 13.9% in new listings available. So that's encouraging for buyers in the market. Auction clearance rates for May, very similar to April at 63.9%. Buyer activity is still relatively high across most property types, especially in that lower and middle segment of the market. It's a little bit weaker at the very top end of the market based on our observations. House values across the month of May shifted 1.4%, unit values shifted 1.9%, and gross yields across all dwellings in Brisbane now sitting at 3.8%. Now, the reason that we are still seeing this strong price growth in Brisbane, it is a story of very low supply. So total listings, whilst they are higher than last month, as are new listings, the aggregate volume of listings compared to the long term here in Brisbane is down 34.1%. So we've still got a high demand market at the same time as we've got listings being relatively compressed, and that's why we're seeing a concentration of buyers onto the limited number of properties that are becoming available, and that is what's pushing or putting pressure on price and pushing those prices up. An indication of demand can be through sales volumes. So compared to this time last year, we've seen sales volumes increase 7% in Brisbane. So this is an indication of the demand for Brisbane property from buyers. Looking at buyer demand auction clearance rates, you can see there across the last 3 months, fairly consistent here in Brisbane. We've got 63.9% of those auctions clearing or selling at auction. We've also got an indication of the number of registered bidders, which was 3.1 per auction in April and 3.5 in May. That said, the volume of registered bidders who actually raised their paddle during auctions was relatively consistent across the 2 months, at around 62% of registered bidders actually participating in the auction. Days on market 3.3% lower right now compared to 12 months ago. So it is a faster moving market, and you'll need to be prepared to act quickly if you are looking to buy in Brisbane. Now let's have a look at dwelling values. For the first time in a very long time, Brisbane has now surpassed Canberra to hold the second highest median value amongst all capital city markets. So Brisbane overtook Melbourne earlier in the year in terms of median dwelling values, and this month we've now overtaken Canberra, so we're second behind Sydney. Of course, there is compositional bias because of the breakdown of units and houses, and we're going to get into that during this presentation as well. According to PropTrack data, Brisbane also showing strong growth. PropTrack data also confirming Brisbane's median value is higher than Melbourne's and is equal to the value for Canberra, and this is dwellings, as I've mentioned, so there is some bias in relation to grouping units and townhouses together. Looking at the price growth segmentation, so it is still obvious across all capital city markets throughout the country, in fact, that the top end of the market is growing at a slower rate compared to the bottom end of the market. So it's the more affordable segment of the market, or more affordable price points, that are showing stronger conditions across the nation. We're certainly seeing this here in Brisbane as well, remembering that this is dwellings data. So generally in the lower segment of the market, you are going to be capturing that unit and townhouse data. And of course, here in Brisbane, that lower segment of the market will capture the performance of townhouses and units, which have been outperforming the housing market. And that's important for anyone to consider when we're assessing the data. Looking at dwellings data over the 12-month period of all capital cities around Australia, you'll see there Perth is in top position in terms of 12-month growth, Brisbane in second place, and then Adelaide in third place, well ahead of all other capital city markets around the country. Looking at the last 3 months, we've actually got Perth in first place, Adelaide in second place, and Brisbane in third place in terms of capital appreciation for all dwellings. And again, you can see they are outperforming all other capital city markets around the country. Let's have a look at house values here in Brisbane. Now, last month we talked about the fact that it was still more expensive at a median value to purchase a house in Melbourne compared to Brisbane. That's changed this month. So Brisbane has now just overtaken Melbourne, according to CoreLogic data, in terms of median house prices. So this is a significant shift. However, Brisbane is still more affordable, has a lower median value compared to both Canberra and Sydney. So in terms of house values, Brisbane is now coming in third place. You'll see there throughout the month of May, we've seen an increase of 1.4% in house values here in Brisbane. That's actually seen quite a strong uplift compared to last month, where house price growth was 0.8%. So we had been seeing house prices ease in terms of the rate of growth or the momentum of growth over the last 2 months prior to May, but that's actually reversed and we've started to see re-acceleration in that price growth. Quarterly growth there sitting at 3.7% and annual growth sitting at 16% for houses here in Brisbane. PropTrack also showing the same trend with positive house price growth here, recording monthly house growth of 0.1% and annual growth of 12.44% in the PropTrack data. Looking at unit values, we have seen unit values grow yet again in Brisbane, monthly 1.9%. Last month, you'll recall that was sitting at 1.5%. Quarterly growth in the unit segment of the market now sitting at 5.3% according to CoreLogic data, and annual growth sitting at 18.2%. So again, the unit market is outperforming the house market here in Brisbane across all timeframes, monthly, quarterly and annually, as reported by CoreLogic. We've got unit price growth, according to PropTrack, also showing positive growth over the month of 0.86% for Brisbane, and annual growth sitting at 15.74%. Just showing you the changes in property price growth over the last several years. So this is from the onset of COVID, from January 2020, dark lines being house price growth and the light blue lines being unit price growth. We've actually seen this retraction period where houses actually fell much more than units. This is when interest rates were increasing, but now we've seen this very strong growth, but more so in the unit segment of the market over recent months, as you can see by this particular graph. We've also got vacancy rates. There's been no change across the last month in vacancy rates, still sitting at 1% here in Brisbane, which is historically very, very low. Rents here in Brisbane still tracking strongly. When we look at the long-term rental growth across all stock here in Australia, Brisbane has definitely outperformed. So in the housing market, rents have grown 9.6% on an annual basis, and in the unit market, rents have grown 8.2%. So just for comparison, prior to COVID, the annual pace of growth in rents across all of Australia was 1.3% per annum. So there's definitely outperformance happening, and this is a result of the very low vacancy rates that we are experiencing, combined with that very strong demand that we are experiencing here in Brisbane. Rent growth in Brisbane, as you can see on that left-hand side, the change in median advertised weekly rents in Brisbane has been well and truly an outperformer compared to the national average. And you can see the change in median advertised rents for units. So the left side is houses, the right side is units, also an outperformer here in Brisbane compared to the national average. So second behind Perth and the rest of WA in terms of those regional areas. So those tenants that have been here in Brisbane have really been, feeling the pinch in terms of the rate of rental price growth that has been experienced. Just as a summary, I've got Brisbane's growth rate is re-accelerating this month after an easing in the housing market last month. As we pointed out, we're starting to see that strong surge in monthly changes based on the median values. That's a reflection of what was happening in April off the back of Easter, because remember, what we see in the data are settled sales values, not necessarily what's happening just last week. The change or the reacceleration in prices here in Brisbane is evident across both the house market and the unit market now. This is evident in both monthly figures and quarterly figures, so we're definitely seeing strong activity throughout Brisbane. The unit and townhouse segment of the market is still outperforming housing here in Brisbane. That's evident on an annual, a quarterly and a monthly basis. So if you are in that more affordable segment of the market, you'll probably find there is a lot more buyer depth and there is a lot more competition happening in that area. Yes, we still do have an environment of low supply and high demand here in Brisbane. It does continue to put that upward pressure on prices, and that's why we do expect to continue to see price growth here in Brisbane until such time that listings either rapidly increase or we actually see that demand suppress. But there's no indication on the ground that that is likely to happen anytime soon. We are aware it's a higher interest rate environment. We are aware that there's inflationary pressure and cost of living pressure. However, there's some positive signs that the rate of population growth has eased slightly. That said, it doesn't appear to be having a measurable impact on demand in the market right now, and that's why we're still seeing this price pressure. If you'd like to connect with us here at Streamline Property Buyers, you can scan this QR code. You can access our monthly blog. You can actually subscribe to our podcast, the Brisbane Property Podcast, or you can access some of our most recent useful resources that are available to property buyers looking to purchase in Brisbane, and there's no cost to you to do so. Thank you again for your time today, and we'll be in touch again next month. Bye for now.